Well, welcome to Matt's Antique Auto Repair podcast. I'm trying this new segment out called Car Stories, and I figured I'd start it off by not a car with an extravagantly wild story, but a vehicle that's kind of off the wall because you don't see them nearly ever at car shows or meets or whatever. But just a fun car that I bought for a few $100 out east in eastern Long Island, and I enjoyed it for quite a while. It needed a good amount of work, but I trooped through it, on my off days, and I fixed it up. But that would be my 1962 Pontiac Tempest that I don't have anymore. But I figured I'd share some photos and a brief story of the car and its cool features. So if you'll join me, that'd be cool. But anyway, I found this car on Craigslist, I think it was, and it said, good project, needs work, willing to trade. So I'm like, oh, that's cool. I think he wanted like $1,500, but he's like, oh, I'm also interested in trades. The guy. I said, okay. So I emailed him, and I just was like, at the time I was driving an 87 Cadillac DeVille, and for those of you that ever rode in one of those or owned them, that is the front wheel drive with the 4.1 4100 motor, which had a horrible reputation, but despite that, believe it or not, it was a beautiful little car. It was fun. It was all in original condition, and but it was on its last leg, interior wise. It needed a few things. So he was like, yeah, bring it by. Maybe we could do a trade. I proposed it to him over email. So I drove it up there. It was like a kid just graduating high school, and he was trying to get into old cars. But this one was kind of in over his head. Like, you could tell he never, worked on a car. And the first thing I noticed about the car, not being immaculately versed in early Pontiacs, mid-century Pontiac, whatever, early 60s, I had a side view of the motor, and I'm like, that's cool. It's a V8, I could see the four spark plug wires and the valve cover just on the side. So we talked a little bit, and then I walked around to the other side, and I said, there's no other cylinder head, and I realized it's a slant 4. So it's a 4-cylinder, and of course I Googled the backstory of that, and it led me to, I guess they called it the I forget what they called it, but it was just a slant 4 style. They didn't call it a slant 4, but that's what it was. It was a half a V8. It was a half of a 389 V8, and oh man, it was cool, and it was just unique, So anyway, I looked around the car a little more, and we came to a deal. I think I said, I'll trade you the Cadillac plus $300, and he went for it, and he was happy with the Caddy, and I was psyched to have this car because, as you've heard in some of my recent entries, I'm a big fan of off the wall stuff, So I towed it home, and everything was original. It had the old AM radio, solid state radio. The body was a little rotted, but nothing horrible. I mean, it was straight. It was just beautiful lines. Now, for those of you who've never sitting in one or seen one up close, it's basically the size of like a Chevy Corvair or a early 60s Buick Skylark, I guess, or a Century, whatever the smaller one is. But it just had these weird features that you never see in vehicles at the shows or vehicles on TV shows or just out and about. And some of those including the rear transaxle and the rope drive. Now, the rope drive was really cool. It was basically a wound thick cable. I think 3 wound cables. I guess I'd argue to say the diameter of like a garden hose apiece, and wound in unison in parallel, and put in what they call a torque tube, I believe, and it ran all the way through the transmission hump. But basically, what you had was the slant 4 in the front. You had your trans in the back, like it would kind of be a little morphed around setup in a modern front wheel drive car, or even a front wheel drive car of the 80s, but kind of stretched and reversed a little bit. So your torque converter was literally exposed, just spinning, just freewheeling near the trunk, and it was just made the wildest noise. It was just so cool, because when it was idling, it would just hum. And once I got the car running, I just fell in love with it. I mean, more. It was just such a freaking wild car. It was fucking off the wall. So, I was working at the Sayville bowling alley at the time, and I was literally commuting in that car like every other day, and the heat worked. Like, I friggin' just sent it, the heat just, I turned it on, it worked. I put like an aftermarket stereo underneath. That's how I roll. I don't make shit fancy. I put some fucking carpets from like Five Below discount store on the front and back, and just cruised it, But it just had so many cool, and it was so tiny. Like, it was a tiny car to get in and out of. But it was just so much fun. It was a cool car. Manual steering, but it kind of had that beautiful airplane lines of like the early Bel Airs, and that flight deck, and everything really was airplane themed. And some of the other features I loved was when, of course, you had your high beam switch on the floor, but you would click it, and the Indian head chief would light up red in the speedometer. It was just cool, things you don't see anymore. And yeah, it's just cool. So I drove it for like maybe a few months, and then I got a job in upstate New York, which I was at very briefly. So I had left my job at the bowling alley and moved upstate. But I got the car at my neighbor's house. When I came back, the job didn't work out. Yeah, the car was still plated and insured. I could still drive it. But I was trying to launch a little eBay store, buying and selling classic cars. And I didn't really need the car particularly. I had a service truck or car at the time, or a station wagon with my tools in it. So I put it up for sale, and this really nice couple, like a really young newlyweds, like in their early 20s, from Pennsylvania, bought it. And super nice people, and he trailered it home. And later on, I found out he got in an accident with it. He lived. He was okay. He had nothing major, but the car was done. And he had showed me photos. I couldn't find them. I looked in my phone, but it was mangled. It was kind of like a driver's side head-on collision, so it kind of bounced to the right or whatever, or the left, and just destroyed the car. But thank God he was okay, obviously, and of course. But it was a fun car. It was a cool journey, and I just wanted to share that with you guys quick. And if you see these out there, if they're at Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, and they're under a few $1,000, I would definitely jump on it, because it's not all about speed sometimes. It's not all about what your friends or your peers, whatever, say is cool, or what YouTube videos say is cool. It comes, from A, what you like, and B, if you're looking at it from a reselling perspective down the line, they'll hold equity in some type of collector market, but they're just enjoyable. They have like a fishtail gear selector, was like cable control, so you just click it down like a elevator button. It was so cool. But they are around. You'll find them. You'll find them because not a lot of people are going to buy four-door Tempests. But they will start, I mean, people are really catching on to the classic car, the enjoyment of the hobby and the community. So again, if you find one of these cars, definitely jump on it if it's not too much money for sale. And if you just see one at a show, definitely take it all in, get a good look at it. It's a real treat. But this is Matt. This is Matt's Antique Auto Repair Podcast. We talk about life, talk about music, talk about anything you want to talk about. And if you got any questions in the comments, or whatever, suggestions, things that, repair questions, advice, anything. I'd love to advise and so forth. But I appreciate your support and listening, and, stay tuned. There's always something good going on at the garage. Have a great night.